Beginning temperature 31.6, 31.6. Beginning mileage 11548, 11548. Alrighty, Christmas Eve. Now let's back this pig out. $1.99 gas, pretty awesome shit. So let's see, today we're going to talk about dogs again. After I crashed and burned on my last On the Porch video. I am going to, from here on out, get rescue dogs, hopefully Italian Greyhounds. Because I love my Italian Greyhound. The only thing is, very hard to house train them. But, that's okay. That's okay, they're cool dogs. And they have to, if you didn't know anything about Italian Greyhounds, they have to sleep under the covers with you. Because that's what they were bred for. Their normal temperature is like 106 degrees. And they don't, fart. They don't do any of the big nasty, other than they're hard as hell to house train. So if you ever get into a situation where you can save an Italian Greyhound, they're miniatures. So they're not very big. They don't eat a lot. But they're just all kinds of cool. Next to a German Shepherd, they're like my favorite dogs. But it's not like they're gonna protect your house or anything. The two I have don't bark a lot. Unless they're outside. Alrighty, Christmas Eve. I'm set. I got a box of beer. I got a carton of smokes. What else do I need? Nothing. Oh, and a couple miles for the PBC ride. Yeah, but going back to the dogs discussion, you lose one. I've always gone with a different breed, a bigger one, a smaller one. I definitely never picked out a dog that resembled the one I just lost. And yeah, the whole thing sucks when you lose them. But you know, they all have their own little personalities. They all have their own little idiosyncrasies. Yeah, I'm gonna pull out in front of you, you dumb fucker. Thanks for caring though, but it's just my take on things. I mean, you can get the same breed of dog, it's gonna have a different personality, but that the coloring will still remind you of the other dog. That's why I say, don't do that. I mean, those of you that have remember Aaron, the white dog with the black face, the dog before her, his name was Blackshirt, and he looked like a rotty German Shepherd mix, and he was black and brown, predominantly black. And that dog was like freaking awesome. He was so cool and so tough that he loved to go out on the boat with me. Well, actually, he loved to go anywhere that Auntie 8 went. He'd go hunting with me. He'd scout deer for me. He was just awesome. And if I left him on the shore when I went out on the boat, he would swim out to the boat. And I would actually have to pull him up on the back of the boat. And then he was cool. He was like, all right, don't leave me again, dickhead. But yeah, Blackshirt was like one of the most awesome dogs that I've ever encountered, because he was just flat out cool. And I could give him hand signals when we were out deer hunting, because I never hunted in a tree stand. Once in my life I hunted in a tree stand, and I was like, well, this is kind of chicken shit. Let me go out and stalk them. So I'd go out and stalk them. And he'd go right with me, and he'd follow my hand signals. He didn't run off ahead. He didn't lag behind. He walked right next to me. And I never trained him to do that. The only thing I trained him to do was my hand signals. I'd put my finger up to my mouth, like, you know, be very, very quiet. And he would look at me, and he'd look away, and then he'd look back at me, and I'd give him the same hand signal. And then he'd do it. I really miss that dog. That dog was super awesome. He ended up getting hit by a truck, and that was one of them that died in my arms. And I even tried to give him CPR, blowing into his nose and pressing on his chest. His main injuries were back towards his hips and stuff. And my dad was like, we can run him to the vet, which was like 60 miles away, and I was like, he's not going to make it, Dad. Not really a point in even trying. And yeah, I bawled my eyes out. And then I bought another years later. I mean, I've got the 2 Italian Greyhounds that I already have. And then I try to space them out so they're not all the same age, so they all don't die at the same time, if that makes any sense to you. Well, I've got Dakota and Iowa, and Iowa's the female, Dakota's the male, and Iowa turned out to be a double miniature, twice as small. And the whole thing was I was going to breed them. Well, I talked to my breeder, and they said she's not going to be able to have puppies. She's too damn small, unless you can find a mini Italian Greyhound, but even still it might kill her. So neither one of them I have fixed. So I thought, okay. So I went back up to Yankton, South Dakota, and I bought another one. And I named her Nebraska. And she was a skittish, goofy little brat. And she ran outside the yard and ran off, and she wouldn't come back to me, and I chased her and chased her. Matter of fact, I was late for work that day because I called them up and I said, my dog got out the fence. I'm not coming to work till I catch it. And I never did catch it, and finally I went to work. And the breeder I have, or I had, they don't sell them anymore, microchipped them, and she got run over by a car out on Broadway and drug herself to a dog, to a pet store, and they read the chip and they called the breeder, and the breeder called me and said, here's where your dog is. So I went up there, and they had already had her looked at by a vet, and they were like, she's not gonna make it, dude, which was crushing in itself. So I took her home, and I tried to nurse her what I could, and they had given this pet store some pain pills, which they gave to me, and so I kept her out of pain with those pain pills, and she also died in my arms. Erin, I just couldn't bear to go with her to get put down, because here was a rescue dog. She had me for an owner. I gave her to my mom and dad, had her for an owner, and then I ended up back with her because nobody else in the family would take her. So I took her back, and I think somebody poisoned her in the front yard. Can't prove it. And so she died. It was a bad deal all the way around. But she was a tough dog. She didn't give a shit about anything. She never wanted to show affection. She was just basically a tough girl. So she died the tough girl death. So I don't know. I guess you got to judge each dog that you go through. I don't know about cats. Ending mileage 11554, 11554.